Within months, she felt more joyful than she had in years. She once told me, "I may not have a large family nearby, but I have the world around me, and that's sufficient." That's the magic of broad connection. It doesn't demand deep friendships or family reunions. It requires a willingness to engage with the world, to be open to moments of warmth with those around you. And speaking of warmth, there's another potent key to joy after 81 that might surprise you even more. It has nothing to do with wealth or kin, and everything to do with how you perceive yourself and your place in the world. If there's one thing that can silently rob joy in your later years, it's the feeling of being less useful, less relevant, less needed. Society often fixates on youth, making it easy to believe that aging means fading away, but that belief is false. And the most joyful people over 80 know the truth. Your value doesn't vanish with age, it deepens. There's a shift when you stop viewing yourself as past your peak and start recognizing that you possess something invaluable: wisdom, perspective, and the ability to discern what truly matters. And here's the best part: when you embrace that, your joy grows, and so does your influence on the world around you. I once met a man named Harold, 87 years old, who had worked as a mechanic for most of his life. He had no children, no surviving kin, and little wealth, but every day he was joyful. Why? Because he saw himself as valuable. He spent his afternoons on a bench outside an auto shop, chatting with younger mechanics who sought his advice. He wasn't paid or running the business, but he offered something priceless: his experience, stories, and guidance. In doing so, he felt needed. He felt alive. That's the secret. Feeling needed isn't about holding a job or raising a family. It's about recognizing you still have something to offer, and you do. Whether it's sharing life lessons, mentoring someone younger, volunteering, or simply being a kind, steady presence, your wisdom matters. And let's be clear, this isn't about grand gestures. You don't need to launch a new career or start a big project. Sometimes the most meaningful impact comes from the simplest act: offering advice to a neighbor, teaching a grandchild something you love, or sharing a story from your past with someone who needs encouragement. These moments remind you and those around you that age is not a loss, it's a gain. One of the most inspiring things I have ever heard was from an 85-year-old woman named Margaret. She said, "I don't wake up asking what I have to do today. I ask what I have to give today." And that shift, focusing on what you can offer instead of what you've lost, changes everything. Now, we've discussed inquisitiveness, connection, and purpose. But there's one more key to joy after 80, and it might be the most potent of all. It's something that transcends the mind and reaches deep into the heart. There's a moment in life when you realize joy isn't something you pursue, it's something you craft. The most joyful people over 80 have mastered one thing that transforms everything: thankfulness. Now, I know what you might think: I've heard this before, but stay with me. Because thankfulness after 80 is unique. It's not about simply being grateful in a vague, passive way. It's about deliberately choosing to focus on what endures instead of what has faded. It's about training your mind, yes, training to see delight in places you might have overlooked before. When you're younger, thankfulness often ties to big events: a promotion, buying a home, celebrating major milestones. But later in life, the most powerful thankfulness comes from cherishing small, everyday moments: the warmth of sunlight on your skin, the flavor of your morning tea, the comfort of a familiar chair, the sound of birds at dawn. The most joyful people don't just notice these moments, they savor them. There was a woman named Helen, 92 years old, who had lost much: her spouse, her ability to travel, even some independence. But if you met her, you'd think she was the wealthiest person alive. Every morning she wrote down 3 things she was thankful for, and they weren't grand things. One day, it was the scent of fresh pastries. Another, a call from an old friend. She once told me, "If you search for what's missing, you'll always find it. But if you look for what's still here, life will always feel abundant." That's the true secret. Thankfulness isn't about pretending life is flawless, It's about deciding that even in imperfection, there's beauty. It's about focusing on what you can enjoy rather than what you've lost. And when you do this daily, when you train yourself to see delight in small things, you don't just feel happier, you become happier. Science supports. This research from Harvard shows that people who practice thankfulness regularly experience less stress, less sadness, better sleep, and even improved heart health. Why? Because the mind follows where you guide it. If you focus on loss, you feel empty. If you focus on what endures, you feel full. So, what's the true secret to joy after 80? It's not wealth, it's not kin. It's not some magic recipe, it's inquisitiveness, staying open to life. No matter your age, it's a connection finding delight in the people around you, even in small moments. It's purpose knowing you still have something to offer, and most of all, it's thankfulness, choosing daily to see what's still beautiful. And here's the best part. Joy isn't something that happens to fortunate people, it's something you can nurture, starting today. So, I challenge you, before you go to bed tonight, think of 3 things you're thankful for, write them down, say them aloud, feel them in your heart, and tomorrow, do it again. It's a small habit, but it has the power to transform everything. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to stay updated with more content. To help you thrive at any stage, and share in the comments, what's something small that brings you delight? Let's start a conversation and uplift each other. Here's to a life that's full, vibrant, and deeply joyful, no matter how many candles are on your cake. Self-sufficient doesn't fade, if anything, it grows stronger. But the truth is, independence after 80 looks different from what it did at 60. It's not about doing everything alone, it's about knowing when to ask for help and being brave enough to accept it. I learned about a man named Eugene, 85, who prided himself on handling everything himself. He'd survived war, raised 4 kids, and built a shed out back with scrap wood and grit. But one winter, he slipped on his icy driveway. No broken bones, just bruised pride. He didn't tell anyone, but his daughter noticed something was off. She started visiting weekly to bring groceries and stay for coffee. At first, Eugene resisted, saying, "I'm fine." But over time, that coffee became a ritual. And eventually, he admitted something surprising. It's nice not having to bear everything alone. That's the shift. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. Accepting help isn't a loss of independence, it's a way to protect it. Because when you let someone assist with the stairs, drive you to the doctor, or carry a heavy bag, you're giving yourself more years to do what matters most. Not all help comes from people. It can be a grab bar in the shower, a stool in the kitchen, a note on the fridge. These small aids don't diminish your dignity, they preserve it. After 80, the bravest thing you might say is, "I could use some help." The older you get, the more strength you show by choosing safety over pride, peace over struggle, and connection over isolation. One of the more painful truths of life after 80 isn't about your body or memory, it's about your presence. Slowly, you start to feel unseen, not by those who love you, perhaps, but by the world at large. The cashier looks past you to the person behind you. The doctor speaks to your adult child instead of you. The server assumes you can't hear, think, or choose for yourself. It's subtle at first, then more frequent. Even if you try to shrug it off, it stings deeply because, no matter your age, you want to be noticed. When you've lived a full life, worked, raised a family, made choices, weathered storms, it's jarring to feel ignored just because your skin has wrinkled or your hair has grayed. What hurts more is that it's rarely intentional. A fast-paced world overlooks slow steps that still carry stories. A society fixated on youth forgets the resilience it took to reach this age. Unless you speak up, you risk fading, not because you've lost your voice, but because others stopped listening. I recall a woman named Irene, 86, who volunteered at a local museum. One day, a visitor asked a question she could have answered effortlessly, having lived through that very era of history. But the question passed her by. When I asked how she felt, she smiled and said, I'm used to it. But there was sorrow in that smile, the kind that comes from being seen as scenery instead of a spark. But you are not scenery. You are not background. You are still here, still thinking, contributing. Just because the world sometimes forgets doesn't mean you must. So, what can you do? You speak anyway. You ask questions, share opinions, vote, and tell your stories even when unprompted. You stand up, even if your knees tremble, because every time you claim your space, you remind the world and yourself that you're not finished. You're not invisible. You're a living archive, a witness to time, a voice that still matters. You don't need to shout to be heardy, you need to refuse to vanish. If you're still watching and finding these insights helpful, please comment number 4 below to let me know you're here. If you haven't subscribed yet, I suggest subscribing and turning on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us keep creating quality content to inform and inspire you. Now, let's move forward. As you venture deeper into your 80s, a strange stillness settles not just in your home or routine, but within you. Life slows, the calendar isn't as full. With that slowness comes space to reflect, recall, revisit. That can be beautiful, but if you're not careful, it can turn heavy. Not the loud, dramatic kind, but the quiet kind, the I wish I'd spent more moments with them kind. The why didn't I seize that opportunity when I had it kind. The kind that emerges when you have time but not always the energy or freedom to pursue what you once delayed. This isn't discussed much. We celebrate the wisdom of aging, the freedom of retirement, the joy of grandchildren, and all that is true. But so is the lingering question that often goes unasked: what now? If you've spent your life working, giving, running, raising, serving, and then it stops, it can feel like your purpose is fading too. One knew a man named Stanley, 88, a teacher for over 40 years. After retiring, he felt proud, but also oddly empty. No one needs me anymore, he once said. But that wasn't true, he just hadn't yet found a new way to be needed. Because purpose doesn't retire, it transforms. Maybe you no longer build houses, but you build confidence in your great-grandkids with your stories. Perhaps you don't lead meetings, but you lead with presence when someone is grieving. Maybe you don't solve big problems, but you ease loneliness with a smile to a neighbor. The danger of regret isn't the mistakes you've made. Everyone has those that's lingering in them too long without turning them into something meaningful. When you redefine purpose not as productivity but as presence, you realize you still have much to offer. Not just to others, but to yourself. The most important work after 80 may not be for legacy or praise. It may be this: waking up with kindness in your heart, curiosity in your eyes, and enough courage to ask, how can I bring light today, even if just a little? That's not regret, that's renewal, and it's never too late to find it. Reaching your 80s is a remarkable milestone, built on decades of love, loss, effort, change, and resilience. But with that strength comes new challenges, some subtle, others impossible to ignore. Facing these realities doesn't weaken you, it makes you honest. It means you've lived long enough to see life for what it truly is: unpredictable, sometimes unfair, but still deeply worth embracing. So, which of these 5 truths resonated most? Was it the silence when your social world shrinks? The frustration of a body that doesn't heal as it once did? The unease of needing help when you've always been the helper? Or perhaps the invisible feeling when the world moves too fast to notice you? Or the ache when your purpose feels unclear? Whatever it was, I hope you felt acknowledged, because you're not alone, not in the slowing down, the forgetting, the questions that keep you awake, or the moments that make you wonder what's next. And here's the good news: even now, you can choose. You can choose connection, rest, asking for help, speaking louder when overlooked, and speaking more softly when someone needs your kindness. You can choose to forgive yourself for what didn't happen, and honor yourself for what did. This chapter isn't the end, it's the deep part of the story, where every word carries weight, where small gestures mean more than grand ones ever did. Your presence, patience, and perspective, these become your strength. Thank you for joining us today. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below, and share one thing you learned today and how you plan to use it. Your thoughts matter to us, so don't hesitate to share. Reading your comments gives us great motivation and encouragement. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us keep creating quality content to inform and inspire you. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.